We are living in times where we are witnessing the destruction of things that I have always thought were indestructible. New York City, for example. New York City used to be the greatest city in the world. The atmosphere in the city is unlike anywhere that I've ever been. Bill de Blasio single handedly has destroyed New York City. The city that never sleeps hasn't woken up in over a year. Midtown Manhattan is essentially a ghost town. Same things happening in Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New Orleans. There is something special about New Orleans. There is nothing like game day in downtown New Orleans. The city's full of life, or it used to be anyway, until LaToya Cantrell ruined it. She is using the COVID to destroy a city that heavily relies on tourism for their income. All of these cities that I mentioned, they are being destroyed by the policies put in place by their so called leaders. We're starting to see the same thing happen in the NFL. I have always thought that the NFL was bulletproof. Nothing can destroy the NFL, right? We have seen woke politics ruin the NBA, tanked ratings for the Olympics. When Colin Kaepernick and other players in the NFL started to kneel for the national anthem back in 2016, it had a negative impact on the ratings. Ratings for the 2016 season dropped, I believe, 15-20%. Even with that decline, though, the NFL was by far the most popular thing on television. Following season, once the league blackballed Colin Kaepernick, ratings went right back up. They survived the concussion scandal when the mainstream media was trying to cripple the league. They paid, I don't know how many millions in settlements to former players. All we heard about for years was the dangers of concussions and CTE. Didn't matter. The NFL still thrived. There are changes happening in the NFL right now, and I don't see how these changes don't have a negative impact on the league and its television ratings. We witnessed one of those changes yesterday in the game between the Colts and the Panthers. I wish I could play this clip for you, but, YouTube would strike my video. By the way, I see other channels on YouTube playing clips. I don't know how they get away with it. If I am unaware of something and there is a way to play video clips from ESPN or NBC, NFL, whatever, please let me know. Shoot me an email, btlkc84@gmail.com, and tell me how to do it. But in that game yesterday, Colts-Panthers, Colts running back Benny LeMay broke a nice run for about 15 yards. He was actually hit right past the line of scrimmage, pushed the Panthers linebacker for another 10 or so yards before he was taken down. It was one of those runs that, had it happened in a regular season game, it would have popped the crowd, possibly shifted momentum. And you've got to understand, Benny LeMay, he is an undrafted second-year player. This dude's trying to get a roster spot, trying to get a job. He was cut by the Browns last year during training camp. That run yesterday, probably the biggest run of his short NFL career. Obviously, he was excited about it. After the play, Benny LeMay walked and flexed. It was a mild celebration at best. I hesitate to even call it a celebration at all. It was something that we have seen thousands of times in a football game. It was literally nothing. NFL officials didn't think so. They hit Benny LeMay with a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Now, many people are blaming the officials. I'm not going to do that. It is not their fault. This is on Roger Goodell. The NFL front office has given strict orders to officials to clamp down on unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. They actually sent a memo before the preseason started. And in the memo, the NFL front office said, "We have seen an increase in actions not representative of the respect to opponents and others on the field, and we are instructing officials to strictly enforce the taunting rules." The problem is, what constitutes taunting? In some cases, it can be a subjective call. Now, there are times where taunting is obvious, but in a lot of cases, like what happened yesterday, the taunting was obvious to one person, the official who threw the flag. The rest of us Didn't think it was taunting. Our opinions don't matter though. The NFL already has a problem with officials slowing down and having too much of an impact on the game. The league is creating a situation where you're pitting players and fans against your own officials. They're asking players to temper their instincts. Control your emotions. Don't celebrate. If you score a touchdown, walk straight back to the sideline. It takes all the fun, it takes all the emotion out of the game. It's the same thing Major League Baseball did years ago, restricting players from celebrating, from having fun. It doesn't help that the NFL's rules on taunting are very, very vague. In the rule book, it describes taunting as acts that engender ill will towards teams, whatever the hell that means. But they don't provide any examples. Basically, taunting is whatever the officials think it is, which makes it extremely subjective. And the definition of taunting can change from game to game depending on which officiating crew is working the game. The crackdown on penalties, though, that is not the only thing that could negatively impact NFL ratings this season. The league's push for the promotion of social justice could have devastating effects. I don't know what Roger Goodell's thinking. When Adam Silver allowed the NBA to jump into the SJW pond last year, he was being pressured by the players to do so. The face of the league, LeBron James, was pressuring Adam Silver to turn the NBA into a giant SJW commercial. Roger Goodell was not facing that kind of pressure from NFL players. I cannot think of one instance in the last year where players in the NFL have pushed for the league to become political. When the NFL announced a couple of months ago they laid out their SJW plan for this season, I was actually surprised. My first thought was, what the hell are they doing? We saw what SJW politics did to the NBA. Damn near killed the league. NBA ratings, even today, are the lowest they have been in my lifetime. Politics ruined the Olympics. It's impacted Major League Baseball. The message from fans throughout all sports has been made clear. We don't want politics in sports. Yet Roger Goodell is ignoring it, which means one of three things. One, he's out of touch. I don't believe that to be the case. Roger Goodell's a smart dude. You don't become commissioner of the biggest sports league in the country by being a dummy. Two, Roger Goodell's arrogant, thinks that the love of football is so strong in this country that people will watch the NFL no matter what they do. Or three, the league is being pressured politically to become a leader in social justice. I think it's reason three. Roger Goodell watched ratings collapse in 2016 when a handful of players tried to get the NFL to be woke. He knows infecting the league with the sickness is going to have a negative impact on ratings. I think Roger Goodell was backed into a corner. We have talked about ESG a few times here on the channel. ESG is not a conspiracy theory. It is real. Every company the NFL is associated with has an ESG score. Every network that broadcasts their games has an ESG score. The NFL has an ESG score. If the NFL refuses to comply with ESG, they could potentially lose sponsors. And if you lose sponsors, you don't have TV. The NFL flirted with the idea of going woke last season. They allowed it week 1. But the backlash was so severe that it just quietly went away. They got back to football. But like I said, I think Roger Goodell was backed into a corner going into this season. You comply, or we will find someone who will. The NFL was the last holdout, besides the UFC, of course. Dana White will never allow the agenda to infect the UFC. But of the big 3-4 leagues we have in this country, the NFL is the final holdout. And the social justice agenda got them too. We will see how it impacts them this season. We're less than a month away from week 1. I will be watching. My love for the NFL is strong. I'm one of the people that I don't care what the league does. I'm going to watch it either way. But there is a sizable portion of the NFL audience that is not like me. They can live without football on Sundays. So we will see how this impacts the league going forward. And of course, we will be covering it right here on the channel all season. All right, time to let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts on the NFL's push to clamp down on unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Also, with the league committing to social justice, will you be watching the NFL this season? Or are you going to turn it off like you did the NBA? Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.